All right, and welcome back to the Talk Past podcast. I am, of course, the host channel, NC, in my various letters, and returning, of course, a very dear best friend. You can always introduce yourself.
Greetings, Earthlings. I'm Katie,
Mhm.
aka Sailor Raccoon.
Yep. Got a lot of raccoons on the channel.
You know, it's a good motif to have.
It is, it's very rough Talia.
Little grabby hands,
Mm-hmm.
no shame. It's perfect.
Yep. There's raccoon memes going around. There's the one where the boy comes in to his house with a raccoon. Mother yells at him. Raccoon's trying to get out of his hands, and he's like, "It's a new pet." Or
sounds like me.
I just watched one on Reddit, which I'm banned from Reddit permanently.
Oh,
Well, now I can look at Reddit without issues and without the temptation to reply to people,
yeah.
which is how I got banned.
Oh, you touched the poop. Yeah, I never touched the poop.
Yeah, I said things that everybody else was saying, but I pissed off the wrong mod in the wrong subreddit. Right. But anyhow, there's one from a video from UCI, whatever that is. It's a college campus. And it's like a nighttime, kind of like a UC Sunnydale sort of setting. And raccoon's just hopping around, chasing its tail.
That's adorable. I need to go look that up. That sounds super cute.
Yep, it's the subreddit r/UCI. It's like everybody's going up all in arms on that subreddit for it. They just put them on the map there. Everyone's gonna go to that college just for that raccoon.
I mean, it's a good, if that's what they're using to draw you into their college, I've seen worse.
Professor Raccoon, yeah.
I'd go to that class.
Since we got the whole working class versus the oligarchs and the politics these days, we can do Professor Raccoon teaches you how to live in the trash.
I did have a class once in middle school called Living on a Shoestring Budget, and it was kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Or you could just live with just a shoestring.
That is also an option. I've heard that the black market takes bits of string as payment occasionally.
The black market is a wonderful place, especially in the Beastars.
Yeah.
Good anime, at least the first season. But in any case, speaking of our weird comedic diatribes, of which I'm sure we will have many here, recently I watched for the very first time in my entire life, 35-year life, more or less, was Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Wow. That's the first time you've seen that? Like, I thought I lived under a rock.
Like 3 months ago. Well, I have this thing where I just kind of avoid cult classics.
That's true.
Until I end up seeing them.
Yeah.
And certain
some
cult
of
classics
them are worthy of their cult classic status. I feel like Monty Python and the Holy Grail is.
Yeah, one day someone decided to just turn on Fight Club. Otherwise, I never would have watched Fight Club.
Yeah.
I don't know why I watched Office Space, but it was on someday, so I'm like, you know what? Whatever. We're doing this.
It's a classic.
It's a movie. I think I should watch it again, given circumstances, Yeah. But it's a very relevant film at the moment. The Dude, I have no clue what's going on with that film. I think I'll keep my avoidance of that.
I watched it. I think I had an ex-boyfriend force me to watch it once, and I was just not. I wasn't feeling it. I probably should try it again, but
I think it's one of those movies you gotta have drugs to watch.
It's also my favorite meme is the little here's an animal here and drugs. No, thank you. We're good. Drugs?
No.
Also,
which, speaking of the dope show, of course, with the Holy Grail, everybody was like wasted and drunk making the movie anyway. But
I do get that vibe, and I kind of love it. I really do.
But I watched it. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying earlier, it's kind of like pumpkin pie. Like, I think about it, and I'm like, man, it's okay. But then I actually get into it. I'm like, pumpkin pie is actually pretty good, Monty Python, Holy Grail is actually really funny. Like, but I just in passing, I'm like, meh, kind of neutral to it. But then I get into it, and it's delightful.
Yeah, it's my favorite pie flavor.
Pumpkin?
Indeed, I'm a pumpkin spice person.
What about sweet potato pie?
I have not tried that yet.
I will
I'm
have to
sure
make
it's
you sweet potato
decent.
pie. It's very comparable to pumpkin pie in flavor, but
I
it's
can
a
imagine.
different texture.
Yeah. Is it potato texture?
It's a little bit of lighter texture. It doesn't feel like you
Uh-huh.
could spackle your walls with it.
Touche. So it's not like slightly muddy.
Yeah, it's a little fluffier.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
But
that's why people put like fluff on it. But
oh, that too. But no,
so,
Monty Python. It's definitely. It's. I mean, obviously, you've got the killer rabbit, and you've got the tis but a
mhm.
scratch, and the holy hand grenade, and she'll count to 3, and 5 is right out. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
different parts of it that are just like you hear all the time, and like if you haven't seen it, it's gonna go right over your head. You know.
I think some of it definitely went over my head because it's a little before my time. But I watched it because obviously medieval, right? And this is a medieval content channel.
Yeah.
We're medieval influencers ish.
Medieval scented. It's the LaCroix of
Yes,
medieval.
yes. We're the Bard Dashians. And so I'm like, okay, but also I've heard that the costuming is actually very, very well done and very historically appropriate.
I would
Um,
definitely say for the knights, especially. Um, I'm not 100% sold that the castle with all of the lonely, sad ladies, but it's fairly. I mean, they're wearing wimples and they've got the little hats, so I mean, it is fairly accurate. I would say maybe not the fabric choices, but
Probably not the fabric or the hoods that are just hoods with the chainmail print on it.
yeah, that's not so much. Also
No,
probably not the spanking. Well, maybe I don't know, but
yeah,
yeah,
you
no, I
never know.
mean,
Never know.
but no, there's a lot of the costuming elements in there that are pretty accurate. I mean, and it just goes to show you, like, they had, I think, like a $400,000 budget for the
Yeah, they had like
movie.
no budget.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's part of the reason why it ended the way it did, which I love that ending so much. I don't know if we want to do spoilers or not.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I plan on going through the beginning to end from my notes.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean the lack of budget was why they just had it end with King Arthur getting arrested.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, everybody was drunk, so it seemed apt.
it's a fun ending.
Oh,
Um,
their budget was 400,000 USD.
oh, well,
So still, I mean, I don't know, depending on
I mean,
inflation, that was probably good for the time, but it's still very low.
yeah, it's still a pretty low budget, and especially when you're doing something where you're having, a lot of costuming and, a lot of places and I mean, a lot of special effects of varying quality, but special effects nonetheless,
Like coconuts, yeah.
and blood. So I mean, it just
Rabbits,
shows you
yeah.
how, in a way, medieval clothing was really basic. I mean, it's like Simi says, it's
Oh,
rectangles
yeah.
on rectangles stitched together with some more rectangles. Like it
And
is.
sometimes there's a triangle.
Once in a while, if you're really fancy, you're gonna get a triangle in there, but that's just half a rectangle.
Yep,
To be
yep.
honest. So
But speaking of, in terms of the historical nature of this uh, film type situation, I did make notes from not really beginning to end because at some point it just kind of loses the plot of medievaliness. But in terms of like anything I can note of quality that's to be denoted historically, if I'm trying to make words come together. But so it takes place in 923 AD in England, which is my jam. That's about it's about my period preference.
yeah, it's
You
early
know,
medieval.
yeah, I like it before it starts becoming a meme of itself.
Yeah.
I feel like the 14th, 15th century is more like the meme period than
Hmm.
the medieval period.
Yeah. No, it's early medieval, but it's definitely.
Mhm.
I mean, things were awful, so it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean that's never changed.
But like awful in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. Awful in the sense that they didn't know that they don't have iTunes and, Spotify.
I can't make
So
up
they had to make up their own music.
can't make up a dope playlist.
No, no. But you could take dope. as like Gandalf did.
As one does. How do you think they survived?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. And
okay.
so my notes are also a little bit jarred. So I wrote down an Athelstan, which that's the pronunciation. Athel, ash. A lot of people, when including myself, even recording this podcast, for those that have the patience to go back in time, I used to call it Ethel, right? Like Ethelstan. So I made the joke of like Ethel pancakes and Ethel this and Ethel that. But it's Athel. It's Ethel. Because I have for the channel, I'm building my own Viking character, with the kit stuff, and it's Athel Wolf. But I don't know where I got this Athelstan thing from, unless that's
I'm trying to think.
King Athelstan.
I don't know. I'm like trying to
Is that the
think through it, and I'm
character?
like, I don't. Maybe it's briefly mentioned.
Well, are we following Arthur in the movie?
More or less.
Let me look up
You're more
where
or
this
less. I mean, it does.
Athelstan is.
There's in the last half, it diverts off to following Sir Robin and Sir Lancelot, but then they all come back together. You have brief forays off to the side because they all split up because it's more effective to find Holy Grail. Split up.
Yeah. Oof. I'm looking at a character list, and it's all like medieval artwork instead of pictures from the movie.
Which I do love. In the animated little vignettes, they use actual bits of medieval artwork. Like the guys bent over playing the horn out of their backside. That is an actual bit of medieval artwork right there.
Oh yeah, that's
it's
lots of
delightful.
little niche stuff.
Not a lot of snails being fought by knights, but I'll take it. We got our Parisian butt flutes as
I got what I did here. So the king at the time is King Athelstan. Which the film denotes that it is 923 in England. However, Athelstan wasn't king until the 10th century. Same century, sorry, but until 927. So I've got little niche notes that denote like little inaccuracies, but they're still taking from history and still making those kind of like nods.
Oh yeah.
And
you could also argue too at this point it was pretty segmented. It wasn't an especially unified country, so you've got a kingdom over here and a kingdom over there. Well,
and not only that, it's taking on the King Arthur stories or the Arthurian legends more or less, because there is no King Arthur in this. He's just Arthur, the drunkard. And Arthur, of course, again for the three people that listen to this, if you go back in time to the other podcasts, whether it's the SEA or whatever, I also talk about briefly wanting either us as a festival doing a historical King Arthur, which would be a 5th century Welsh warlord Arthur, right? So that's more 5th century.
That might be a little bit
King Arthur's. Oh, no worries. But King Arthur is often depicted as Victorian, more Victorian, sort of 15th century.
Oh, yeah,
so this is
heavily romanticized.
Yeah, very, very postmodern goth rock opera, King Arthur. Like Repo, the genetic opera.
I was just thinking about James Marsters playing Arthur,
and he would be a interesting Arthur.
And then Giles could play Luther or Uther.
No, actually, Rupert Giles, of course. Anthony Stewart Head.
No, his name
plays Merlin in Merlin.
Oh, yes, I totally forgot.
Yes, I don't think there's any Buffy cast alum in there, but he's amazing because he's amazing in everything.
Pretty much.
And his brother is the one that did the song "One Night in Bangkok" for the chess movie.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yep. I sometimes listen to that movie, not in that movie, but that song, and visualize as if I'm doing like a dinosaur documentary, and I'm doing a little video vignette of dancing dinosaurs to that song.
I'll take it. I just like listening to it, like the lyrics in it. I don't know, just crack me up. It's a little holier than thou for chess.
Yeah, yeah, but I think that's the point of the movie. I've never seen the movie.
I didn't realize there was a movie associated.
Yeah, so the King Arthur thing is all kind of like squidged in the middle there. So it's like not quite the actual accurate Arthur time, but at least it's not, like the steampunk Arthur that we know and love today.
Yeah, I think Arthur is a vehicle in which to commit the.
But speaking of, so obviously we're doing Arthur completely out of place, but Arthur is a tale of knights and magic and witches and wizards and controversy, regarding that we won't address. But knights didn't actually start getting knighted until about 1066 of the 11th century, around the Battle of Hastings.
That's Hastings times.
So yeah, they were getting a little hasty here, getting those knights.
Oh my god!
Because they were spending their nights drinking.
Once again, I think it lends itself to the Arthur was the way to commit to the medium in which to present
the machine, the vehicle.
It was the dinner roll.
It's either 1066 or the 8th century at Charlemagne, which would be sooner than this. So it would be they say Charlemagne created the knighting system. I'm pretty sure it was actually the sun and the moon that created the night and day system, but they could say Charlemagne if they want.
And if you really want to go there, you could argue it was like Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz who created the night and the moon.
Exactly. Sure, Tom Cruise is a weird fella, but you know what? He does his own stunts, and there you go.
And he has a tooth in the middle of his head.
Yes. Yes, he does. But at least he still has all his teeth.
That we know of.
I mean, it's okay if you don't. You could have like really cool dentures that are like animal teeth, like fangs and stuff, or like invisible teeth.
There's a woman I follow on TikTok who's got a fake eye, but then rather than having like an eye looking fake eye, like she gets them that are like covered in like rhinestones and then obviously encased so it doesn't hurt her.
Yep.
But they're like super sparkly and amazing, and I'm like, you know what? If I ever have to have a prosthetic eye, that's what I'm doing, because that's amazing. It's beautiful.
On TikTok, because I see TikTok videos on Reddit instead of TikTok, there's a guy who is missing an eye and he replaced it with a flashlight laser eye, like Kano from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I think I saw that guy.
Yeah, so he's got like this bright eye that can light up a city. So interesting. I think is the cyborgian world is kind of starting to come into its own with the AI movement.
I've asked my orthopedic doctor several times, like, can we just cut it off and just put like a robot thing there? Because I'd be cool with that.
Yeah,
I'd like doing the science experiment part of that.
Yeah, we can all become Bicentennial Man. A little later in the film version, we'll all look like Robin Williams.
There are worse people to look like.
Indeed, such as Elon Musk. So, because he looks like a weird pigeon with makeup smeared on his face.
Look, but his hairline is great.
After a couple, because it's a fake hairline.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. The hairline's great.
You know what? We should have bionic hair now soon.
I'm getting some real Medusa vibes from that, and I'm feeling it.
There you go. We're turning cyberpunk into reality better than the game.
I'm down.
Yep, and then we'll have cyber knights.
It's a weird slope to go down.
It is. Better than Cyber Days, at least. Oh, yeah. And better than Cybering.
But that's kind of where my mind was going, and I was like, this is a weird thing to go down. I don't think we need to bring back, like, 2003.
No, or that weird movie with Haley Joel Osment before he blew up.
Oh, yeah, with the little kid.
Which Robin Williams was also in, as the genie.
Yeah. Is it AI, I think, in Jude Law? You thinking of the same thing?
Yep, Artificial Intelligence.
That was a good movie.
But speaking of the Britons, so I have a note here: King of the Britons, defector of the Saxons, sovereign of all England. Now I actually don't know where that came from. I don't know if that's a quote, but sure, I wrote it down, and unless that's a historical note, it's in my little niche historical notes thing.
I'll take your word on that.
Like I said, oh yeah. I wrote this down and I watched that movie all of once like 3 months ago, intending to do an episode and then just never doing it. So I've got notes here that I'm like, at this point I've forgotten. But I think that's in reference to either our King Athelstan or just a denoted piece. But obviously this is around after well, actually, let me take a look. Was this around? This had to have been after our Viking scenario that we did the first time around with the heathen army.
It was pretty close. I don't think.
Yeah, 9th century, obviously, because Alfred died just prior to the 10th century. So that's kind of, I'm trying to build a time frame of where we are in the film, specifically historically. And what the heck? So I'm trying to Google King Alfred death, right? When Alfred death. And it gave me the death of Batman's Alfred.
So Alfred the Great died in more or less 1899.
Yep. He died right on the cusp.
So he was before our Monty Python, Arthur.
Yeah, just slightly. At least one generation.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's definitely kind of the same feeling. Once again, it's that very, like, as far as the costuming goes, it's rectangles and rectangles. Women were wearing rectangles, not really fitted, which I do appreciate the fact that they don't have them doing like the corsets and the stereotypical Renaissance-y type garb.
The modern series shows that do that, and they wear the black and the makeup and the mud.
Yeah, no, they're dirty and gross and filthy, and I do love the, when I guess he's trying to get rid of his father-in-law or something. And, he's trying to, pay the guy to take the old man early with the death cart. Yeah. And I think I'll go for a walk. I mean, you can make an argument in there that there is a element of medicine was magical and mysterious, and for a long time, makes you wonder how many people were accidentally buried alive. Because
or purposely,
but
it's a valid
where well, pretty sure they're dead. I don't see them breathing. All right, time to bury them, and then it's like, hopefully they didn't wake up. They just stayed in their coma and died in said coma.
There's actually a recent I don't want to say discovery, because I don't particularly look into Roman stuff. But, and I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. However, Alexander the Great, there's a recent article, because obviously I look at Reddit, right? And there was some comments from an actual person working on it that he was likely buried alive. Because he had some sort of illness that was like super rare, that paralyzes your body, but your consciousness is completely awake. Basically, hypnagogia. When you're sleeping, but you're kind of awake, so your body's asleep, but your mind is and your eyes are open. So normally you'd see like demons or aliens or Gwyneth Paltrow, but instead it was Alexander the Great, and they just kind of up and buried him because he wasn't moving.
Well, I mean, even truly more recently, in the past 2 weeks, there's been a woman in Iowa who was discovered gasping for air inside of a body bag because the Alzheimer's care center she was at wrongly declared her dead. And then there was a woman in New York who was wrongfully declared dead at a Long Island nursing home. She was at the funeral home and they're like breathing. Like, it's uncommon.
I assume it's a horrible way
it's
to
less
die.
common now, you would think.
Well,
than back then when it's, now we have a better understanding of, not a great understanding, but a better understanding of death. Although I think these were just cases of negligence.
Ish. Well, likely. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what they would have known back. Well, considering they're thinking it's a very, very rare illness, and let me look this up. Alexander the Great.
Well, I just have to wonder too, how many people, fell off their horse, got hit in the head, were in a coma, breathing very slowly because, they're not.
Yeah, they say, I'm going to butcher the name because I have no clue how to pronounce this. But Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Oh,
I mean, it's at least better than having Roseanne-Barr syndrome.
Recently turned super racist, and everyone's magically surprised. That still happens nowadays with, a lot of times it's an autoimmune reaction, I believe.
Yeah.
But then
I assume that's a horrible way to
you also have people too, like the saying, in medical fields is, you're not dead till you're warm and dead. And I mean, how many people, quote unquote, froze to death? And like, well, sucks to suck. And we're just gonna,
like Mount Fuji,
throw them in the lake or do whatever. And they were,
or the bog bodies.
Oh, bog bodies are the coolest. I think those are more of a this is a person, we executed him. Now let's, not waste, not want, not might have turned into a sacrifice.
Yeah, I think there's the most common is the Buxton man. The guy with the locks and the red hair and all that stuff. He's got the nice clothing. Yeah. I believe it was denoted he might have been a tax collector.
Oh well,
so of course he's going to end up in a bog.
He's lucky he ended up in a bog at that point.
Yeah, I mean, he could have just ended up in a million different ways that we could still do today. So, you mean, today we're trying to defund the tax system. So at least he died doing what he loved, and that was taking money from the poor.
He was definitively defunded.
Yeah.
The final defunding.
Yeah, he definitely started the Tough Mudder.
Oh my god.
But speaking of, there's a lot of like weird little niche awkward moments. Like I really obviously knowing me that I'm very, very particular with my media in terms of films, shows, games, and whatnot. I'm very specific, I'm very particular, and I tear things apart almost kind of unnecessarily.
It's a sport for you.
Like
it's a sport,
I can
form and like a hobby.
Yeah, I could spend 8 hours destroying Marvel or a week destroying Jurassic Park, despite the fact that I do love the first movie as a movie. But we won't get into that. However, my sort of sense of humor is very like, I love awkward humor. I love awkward moments. And I love very intelligent, cerebral humor. And this movie has a little spattering of both. So there's a lot of like little niche awkward things coming in here. And I'm trying to remember, because it was 3 months ago. I remember there's one scene where they're going to this woman, and I forget why or what they're doing. But if you remember, because you just saw it, there's the scene where they're going to this lady and they're talking about something with the lady.
Is it the one?
They're just having a conversation.
Is it the one where
they're just having a British conversation?
Because there's where they're gonna burn the witch at the stake, and like, why do witches burn? Like, what else burns? Wood. Witches are made of wood, and there's also another one.
That one too.
Where, and it's at the very beginning where, his endlessly hilarious. Well, I didn't vote for you. Well, you don't vote for me. That's not how it works. That's also.
I love that. That's my favorite scene. I love how in depth, and even for the time, political it was, and it's so relevant even today that it's just so on the point.
Some issues are timeless.
And that's my favorite
Yeah.
scene out of the entire film. It's hilarious. I'm trying to look up this woman because the scene they go up to her. She's in a house, right?
Oh,
she's
where
at her
they're
house.
looking for the shrubbery.
Yeah. Yes. The shrubbery for some reason.
The knights
And
and they're
yep,
kneeling at
they
her.
go up to her, and it's just a British conversation, and the whole knee thing. That one, the scene itself with the whole knee thing, right, doesn't really do much for me, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, okay, yeah, this is the scene that I know. Everybody's gonna know about this, the Knights of Knee. If you don't know the Holy Grail, you at least know the knights that say knee. So to me, that's like, oh, okay, it's the cliche moment part of the film. But going into interacting with other characters in the film, and they just pull out the knee thing, and the interaction and people's reaction, like this woman, they're just having a casual British conversation, and they're like, knee!
Yeah.
And it's like he's stabbing her. I'm like, oh.
She's horrified by it. It's terrifying.
I don't know what that to me is hilarious.
Do you have you watched anything Philomena Kunk?
I have no clue what that name is. It sounds rather British.
It is. Philomena is a character who's I want to say Diane Morgan plays her. I could really be wrong on that.
Oh yes.
And she does have a part where she's talking about King Arthur. There's a new Netflix special that's out that is Kunk on the Earth or Kunk on Earth or something like that. And she goes through like the history of mankind in a really punky sort of way.
I saw the clip of her talking about the spoon.
Yeah, and there's a part where she's talking about where she asks if the Renaissance was as culturally important as Beyonce's Single Ladies, and she gets these experts to just answer really supremely stupid questions. And there is a part where she talks about Arthur, and is obviously mispronouncing, and the poor expert is just kind of going along. And she asks if King Arthur, they say he came a lot.
Yes.
And I feel like the sense of humor from Philomena is it's a comparable level of like that kind of awkward, cringy, and then we're gonna sell the pony. We're just gonna go with it.
Mm-hmm. It's a very on point with this Monty Python kind of sense of humor. I love those little niche awkward moments in the movie, such as trying to get rid of his father, or talking to the lady and just throwing out the knee word, and she's like, what are you doing? And so I think somewhere at some point someone said their age was like 37.
Oh yeah, I'm not that old. 37. I think it's in that beginning part where they're talking politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I looked it up. I'm like,
calls
okay,
calls them an old woman.
They were, yeah. And I'm like, well, there were older people back then, like in their 50s at the least, right? Because
for sure,
some people existed without having to breathe, and some people had water, that wasn't full of crap.
Literally.
And obviously, yes, they had water. Water existed back then. They didn't all just drink alcohol. They weren't all alcoholics like in the movie.
And commonly, I mean, beer was the safe beverage to drink, and it wasn't the alcohol content that we have today with beer. It was a lot less alcohol-y, so you wouldn't be getting drunk off of it. It just would be cleaner beverage.
Which I plan on making some Viking mead for the channel at some point, but when I come back down, so
I can take that
because I'm not drinking that
either.
We'll
have to get
it's
some
just honey.
Experiment.
It's just alcoholic
honey. Guinea pigs.
Yeah, but I looked up about that time frame the life expectancy, and this is just the expectancy. Obviously, some people are the exception to the rule, but it's about like 23, 38. So I'm like, yeah, it's on point. It's funny sometimes when they make like age jokes in terms of like someone's like really young, and I'm trying to, as I'm saying this, I'm trying to think up a the reference that I'm coming up with here is on. Have you watched the Netflix show? And the name is escaping me, but it's a comedy about Norse
Oh,
people.
Northman? No, not the Northman.
Not
Norseman.
not
I know which one where it's actually like not dubbed
Netflix
over in.
Norse comedy. Norsemen. No, no, that's the movie. No, yes,
I
that's the
love that
show
show
and the
so
movie.
much.
So the movie's The Northman. This Norsemen, brilliant show,
So
brilliant
funny.
show. Although costuming miserable, but brilliant show. And I remember the guy, spoiler alert, but it's been out long enough at this point, who is technically the king, the Viking king. He's a slave in the show though. And someone said that he looked rough, and he's like, I'm only like 18. And yeah, that's about on point for the
Well,
medieval period.
and I've read some
Yeah.
stuff, talking about, yes, a lot of people did not make it to quote unquote old age, but
A lot of people didn't even make it to like 30 seconds.
well, and that's the thing is a lot of those age estimations of like, the average age of, lifespan,
Yeah.
it's pretty heavily skewed because of the high child and infant mortality rates. Like that really dents it. So more likely the, ages would have been, when you kicked it would have been like 50s, 60s. But
Yeah.
it was
Not
just a
only that,
magic.
but I
Like
mean,
you make it past 5, you might make it to 50. If you make it past like 5, maybe 10.
yeah, unless you're a noble who likes to fight,
Then you're either gonna live a really long time or a really short time. Like no in between.
Mhm. Unless our dear queen, as again, oh, my memory is terrible now since time goes on, but our Eleanor of Aquitaine, she got up to a nice
Yeah.
ripe old
But
age.
it definitely
Wow.
happened for sure. And so it's
Yep.
the average ages are fairly skewed just because like a lot of people
Well, I
didn't
feel like
make
it's a
it
bit
out of the
skewed
cradle.
because yeah, so that's why that you just put a little rocking chair on a casket and that's the cradle. So you hope to upgrade, but if not, then there you go. Don't have to
Pretty
spend any
much.
more money.
Toddler beds are
But
about the same size as a toddler coffin.
yeah, yeah.
So bad.
However, I think it's skewed more because not everybody was buried, and not everybody that died
Oh,
was
for
found.
sure.
So
Yeah, no, they're working pretty
like
loosely off of data.
we can estimate that there was about 2 billion tyrannosaurs in existence, like Tyrannosaurus Rex. Not so much, we can't say for the entire Tyrannosaurus line, but I'm pretty sure there was at least more than 2 billion humans knocking about in the medieval period.
I
Over
mean,
time, not maybe
probably
not all at
during
the same
this
time.
time, you'd have like a an
Maybe
you'd
like
be on the
500,000.
upswing of population, and then once the Black Death kicked in, you'd have a big down spike, and then
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you.
Just like just like the and my mind is going again as I'm trying to reach it, Ooh, ooh, ooh. Wall
Hey,
Street. There you go. Just like dividends and all
well, and
that
then you got the
nice
dead
little
cat bounce
niche
that
stuff.
happens.
Yeah, yeah. Doge.
Um.
I actually invested in Doge. I made money
Oh,
off of
nice.
Doge. That was a wild ride. I was too late for the GameStop thing, otherwise I'd be a billionaire, but I got at least a couple thousand off of
Nice.
Doge. Yeah, yeah, woof woof.
But yeah, no,
Uh,
it's
uh,
the age jokes in there are fairly timely and relevant.
well, yeah, I like ones that are just they make no sense, right? Like in Norseman going up to the dude and being like, "You, you're looking a little rough." That's not the quote, but I'm just adding it. And he's like, oh, I'm 18 years old. So I like that. Just makes no sense. It's completely out of left field. It's like awkward, sort of like nonsensical humor.
Well, and
but
I will say my favorite part from Norseman is the part where they're talking about fashion, and how the horns on helmets, like, it's fashion.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that Monty Python kind of does, some of the same things that Norseman does, where we're going to throw in like this little modern reference that like, or this little reference in here that like works for the entertainment factor, but is also like, if you know your history, here's a little nugget for you. If you know your history, it's going to be extra funny for you.
Little chicken McNugget.
Little Easter egg of fun.
Which I live near a McDonald's, and I recently had a McNugget, and they don't taste the same.
I've heard that.
They taste like men nuggets now. Oh. But in any case, so we're getting to the point of, even though we've never in any way, shape, or form glossed over any sort of chronological events, but I wrote down regarding the Dark Knight in a Holy Grail, and this is a fight combat.
Oh, the Black Knight
reference. Yeah. And I'm noticing his moves, Arthur, or whomever is fighting the Black Knight. I believe it's Arthur.
But you have several other knights in green that he defeats, and then Arthur defeats the Black Knight, sort of.
Yeah. You had nights and you had days and mornings and such. And I'm seeing the fight from a stage combat perspective, which I miss greatly. And so the guy's swings, right? The way he's swinging his sword, to me, I wrote down, like, he's got the most exhausting blows versus the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight looks so much better in fighting, and this guy just got like, he's so like overreaching, and he just looks exhausted just doing moves. Maybe that's the alcohol, but
you could also wonder how many takes did it take to get to that point. Like, there's a solid chance this is take number 10, and he's just done.
He's knackered, and that's why he ends up with the Knights.
But I will say, that's actually one thing I did notice as well, is like watching their fights. Yes, were they technically kind of sloppy and overreaching and just not technically fantastic?
Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not Luke versus later. It's not Luke versus later.
But at the same time, too, in a way, they're almost more realistic because of that. Because, these guys would have been trained how to fight, but by this point, there's a solid chance they're exhausted. Because who knows if they've been walking miles and miles, and now they've got to, defeat this doofus who's just been sitting here. And, and also it was the fights were short. I mean, you can only swing a sword for so long, and it is exhausting. And they weren't, 3, 4, 5, 10-minute fights. They were like the moves were designed to kill and or maim at the very least. So it was definitely a lot more efficient time-wise, because
on top of the fact that pole arms were the common and swords were actually the exception.
Go in my backyard. I can find a stick in my backyard. I'm probably not going to find a sword in my backyard. I mean, if my house, you're more likely to find a sword in my backyard than the average house, probably, but you'll definitely find a stick back there.
You're more than likely to find a sword in my mommy van. Which reminds me of the time I was pulled over by the police in Sarasota because the people I bought the van from kind of scammed me on the license plate thing. But anyway, neither here nor there. So they pulled me over, and I won't go into too much detail of that excursion, but they're searching my van because they're police, right? So, words. And I'm like, just so you know, I've got filming equipment in there. This is literally after I had filmed one of our previous episodes where we did the fight stuff for this channel. Yep. And And I'm like, this is what you're gonna find, just so you know. There was an axe, dagger, my sword, staff. I had my dolly in there, camera, everything, the entire thing. And because I had a mommy van, why not? If I don't have kids, I may as well have weapons. And they're like, oh yeah, no, that's fine. I'm like,
I almost want to say
okay.
at some point, the cops here in Sarasota, I'd like to think at some point it just kind of gets around, like, look, like if you see like weird medieval weapons in someone's car, like you're probably going to at some point in your career here. Like, I was just think one of the quirks of living in this town is you've got a lot of nerds.
Yeah. Or of course the time when we, as our festival group, did the online chess match, and I guess somebody butt dialed the police, and we were all screaming and fighting, sword attacking, and this guy just casually shows up like, "Hello, what's up?"
Around all, because it was done in our backyard. I went around to all the neighbors and let them know, like, look, you might hear this, like, don't worry about it. I think he may even called the non-emergency line just to kind of give them a heads up, like, hey, if anybody calls, like I let all my neighbors know. But yeah, somebody butt dialed 911, and yeah,
and it was one of us, yeah.
Jeremy, it was Jeremy who butt dialed 911, and
it would be the person. It would be the person. The only other person that would be so ironic would be Brandon.
Yeah, and because of the noises heard in the background, even though we had warned them, they still were obligated to just double check.
Yeah. So, train of thought. Knights of Knee. Knights who say knee. So the knights who say knee are kind of a nod to the Victorian Viking stereotypes, which is where we get the Viking stereotype. You know, the horned helmets, the weird button thing shirts. I just had a swig of water. The weird like metal button gambesons that are, you know, they could be 10 million other things that are actually historically accurate, but instead they're, you know, Fabergé. So that was interesting. Obviously, yes, you would still have medieval Scandinavians here at this time. I don't know about Vikings, but
probably maybe not necessarily Viking specific culture wise, but my 23andMe indicates they were busy.
Oh, of course. I'm a 50% English, 50% Scottish. So
I've got a whole smattering of English and Irish and Scandinavian, like a whole ton.
Yeah, but I think I like that it looks like a tree. He just has a bucket on his head.
It's because they're in the shrubbery,
and he's
wearing a shrubbery on his head,
which I did not get at the time. Because why would I? But they all look like I don't know if you would know, but the reference, the ones that are beneath the main knight who says knee, they all remind me of the, I don't know if it's gnomes or dwarves they call them from Chrono Cross.
I don't.
They just their heads are covered in helmets and they've got like beards sticking out, and they just kind of look like they're draped in blankets. Chrono Cross.
I'll take your word on it.
They're really annoying, but in the game, yeah, they look exactly like them except they have giant noses, so and shovels. They fight with shovels.
Shovels are a good weapon.
Of course, you know if you're a Viking knight with a bucket on your head, the shovel's the best weapon. You know that would be apt because if you're looking for shrubbery, you can dig up the shrubs.
Very convenient.
Personally, I don't want no shrubs. Shrub is the kind of guy who, you know, ain't go.
But how do you feel about baby pigeons?
Or girl, baby pigeons. They are Pidgey, not the Pokemon Pidgey, and they could be pudgy, but you know, most baby things are pretty decent, you know. So I'd say
just in case anybody is listening to this and going, "What do baby pigeons have to do with this?" Baby pigeons are called scrubs.
Oh,
No.
touche.
There was a somewhat relevant question to the train of thought.
Because the song is "Ain't No Want No Scrubs," but also reminds me of the episode of Buffy. What's My Line? Part 1 or 2. Where they're sending. I think it's the Order of Taraka. Maybe not. But this is assassins after Buffy because she's a vampire slayer. And she does her job, and the master's like, then send the 3 or send the Order of Taraka, whichever name. They're probably the same. Um, it's probably been about a month since I've watched Buffy. So they go after her while she's just trying to figure out this career day thing, and they had this test. Now I didn't do this in high school when I was in high school for like the brief period I tolerated high school, but I don't know if you did. But the sort of like what kind of job would you do sort of test, and they're having this whole conversation about shrubs, and it's like this question is like, are you for shrubs? And Willow's like, you know what? I came down on the side of shrubs. But yeah, you know what? Go shrubs. And I'm like, what? Is this really a high school thing?
I was told in my high school after our test that I should go into bookkeeping, and I laughed at them because I was like failing math, and I've got my math skills are that of like about an 8-year-old. And fun fact, I am currently a bookkeeper now. So
yeah. About you could say your math skills are about that.
Probably, maybe like a especially smart horse. Yeah,
mine too.
But you don't actually need math to be an accountant, so helps for sure. But Google kind of does the rest for you.
There you go. AI will take care of it for you too. Soon.
But it just keeps not happening.
And so I didn't do that in my high school. My high school was ghetto, and I don't mean like neighborhood ghetto. I'm not talking about like people who are held down financially because of who they are. My school was ghetto because it was like this weird, all the students against all the faculty kind of mentality, and so they treated us like we were prisoners, like literally, like we were a prison school, and everybody would get in trouble for like no reason. I remember one day I was called to the local, not the local. We had our own. Actually, my school had a film studio next to it. That's how I ended up with 4 years of actual production education. Because they did all of the production for the I live in a rural area, so just counties, I guess, from the home network to other stuff. But anywho, that was outside of the high school, and it was just attached to the building. And I learned from an actual film producer and a TV producer how to do production. But anywho, to make a long story short, too late to reference the Bruce. I got called to like the theater, the stage thing, and he's going over like 50 students, telling them why they're here and why they're in trouble and why they get detention. And I'm the last student. And he comes up to me, the principal, and he's like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "Because I got called." It's like, "Go away." Okay. But anywho, to make a niche story more open, I wish I was more knowledgeable in math because I love, the cosmos, the universe, theoretical physics, and all that you learn from like Carl Sagan and stuff. Like that's my jam. But that's also math.
It's really unfortunate because I too am a huge math nerd, a huge science dork. I mean, I've got the periodic table tattooed on my back. But I can understand, want to talk about string theory and quantum physics and all this. Hit me up, I'm your girl. But ask me basic math problems, like just go get a fucking calculator.
Yeah, you ask me how they're getting to these theories.
Magic.
No clue. I don't know the math. It's
magic.
Algebra. I will take the blame for half of it, and then I blame my teachers for the other half. Like my first year of high school, our math teacher. No, my second year. My first year of high school, I hadn't passed math since like 4th grade. I had very traumatic 4th grade experience. That's where I had like meltdowns during 4th grade, and that's where it all went to hell. since 3rd grade, I was a very good studious person, like B, C,
Nice.
straight A's, that kind of thing. Like school was my jam. I was Willow, and then 4th grade was just a mental mess and trauma. But anywho, uh, in my first year of high school, I actually had a teacher that worked with me after
Oh,
class,
nice.
and I got a B, and I passed because I was like, you know what, I need to pass because why not? But 2nd year of high school, they hired a lawyer to be a math teacher, and he would just
Oh,
give
yeah.
us worksheets every day, like, "Do this worksheet, do that," like
Oh,
the
yeah.
Ben Stein voice, but Ben Stein's a horrible person and has no relation to Steins. Like, we're not drinking out of Ben.
That was the
Uh,
best.
and he just, "Do this worksheet, do that worksheet, do this work." The students were begging him to teach them math. Like, we were literally begging him to teach us. Like, no one wants to do worksheets that we have no clue how to do because we don't know what we're
Yeah.
supposed to do. We don't know how to do here's a work because he's a lawyer who was hired basically off the streets like you were, like my environmental company that I worked for, they would hire people literally off the bench in the park. They're like, "Hey, here you go. You're drunk. Here's a
It
phone."
worked.
And it was like, yeah,
I mean,
go ahead.
you know what doesn't require a lot of math? Murder bunnies.
Being a teacher. Murder bunnies coming back to uh coming back to this movie.
My ADD meds work really well sometimes.
Yeah. I on topic, I don't like to add. So,
Yes.
well, I like to add
I
if
like
it's money,
money. I just don't
but
like,
division or
counting it.
subtraction. Yeah, I don't like
Oh, yeah.
needing it. I like just having it because then I can buy toys and
Yeah.
do more production stuff. Because why else would you do money than to improve your life? But anywho,
Do you remember Banuncula?
what is that?
A kid story. I think it might have been a series of kid stories. Basically, it was like this bunny was also like a vampire. It was dumb,
What?
but like it existed. It was real, I promise. And it was like it's this vampire bunny, but would like drain vegetables. So they'd find like carrots and tomatoes that are all dried up husks.
Oh,
Is that what it is?
Banicula.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I looked it up.
That's kind of what I definitely get. I think there's some inspiration for that happening from Monty Python.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like the rabbit I had. Because remember, I had a roommate's rabbit that they abandoned for years until I just had to give her to a better home. She was kind of like that. Yeah. Her and Callie were
I have
best
a shit
buds.
ton of bunnies in my backyard.
Eventually when I get a house, I'm gonna have like 20 chickens, rabbits, foxes, and my 2 cats, and then maybe a dog. Yeah, that's very antithesis of me, but I would only get a dog if I had a house.
I can understand that.
But anyway, speaking of, so on the Viking stereotype, that's a knee. I wrote down that they reminded me of Stewart from Mad TV. No, yes. So they had the Viking stereotypes with the knights who say knee, but they also had the barbarian stereotype when they had the weird foppish prince who was like looked like the Wicked Witch of the West,
from
but
Mad
really
TV.
pale. looks like
God,
Stewart from Mad TV, and he acts like Stewart. He's like,
I didn't even realize that, but he totally does. Oh god, that's hilarious.
Yes.
And that's like my favorite Mad TV character.
That's probably the only Mad TV character.
There's also
name is escaping me, but
there was the one like where she'd always be like,
look like a man.
Wait, where'd you get some shoes? You look like a man. Anyway. Yeah, no, he totally.
Yes.
I didn't even realize that he totally looks like Stuart. He does. And now that's all I can see when I'm thinking of that character.
And he acts like
Who?
Stewart too.
A little bit, yeah.
A little like an exhausted, emaciated Stewart.
That's so funny. I didn't even realize that.
It would have been nice if his father came in acting like Mo Collins.
Oh well, yeah. I mean,
but
it would have been too good.
You know, they then, you know, they missed the opportunity to do that as a Mad TV skit. You know, that would have been perfect, but you know, that's why they're not SNL.
I guess SNL's still on.
For some reason, I don't know why.
It's
but
funny sometimes.
Kind of like The Simpsons.
My favorite's still the horticulturalist who's very afraid of plants. Still my favorite.
Yeah, it's you know it's funny every like one segment every 10 seasons. Kind of like The Simpsons. You know, they do something funny every one segment.
I don't know. I don't
seasons.
get The Simpsons. Simpsons doesn't do it for me. Futurama, I'm your girl.
Futurama, yes.
Simpsons.
I recently watched Enchantment or Enchanted. I think that's Enchanted, right? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I want to talk about that.
Was it Disenchanted? No. Yeah.
Disenchanted,
no, that's really good.
See, we're to those listening, we're a couple old ladies, basically.
Pretty much.
So it's like we're in our 80s trying to remember things from our 20s, but you know.
Look, 35 is hard, okay?
Yes, and you and I both got knocked around in our heads because of what we do. In fact, you and I knocked each other in our heads twice.
Still one of my favorite mystery bruises to discover. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I caused some of your concussions. You caused some of mine.
Makes the dream work.
The raccoon, yeah. But that's how
also,
I
have had COVID like a week or two ago, and I mercifully mostly better. But I think it damaged my brain a little bit because I'm basically off book for this play, but last night my brain was just not having it. I had to ask. At most, I'll ask for a line, once or twice, and I like every other line. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, guys. I don't even know couldn't even remember half my blocking. Was not a good night last night.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did 3 stage shows. I'm very afraid of doing stage shows because of having to remember lines.
That was my hesitation.
That's why. Funny historical sidebar for our fair people. That's typically why I try to be the first person in our training fights, because I know I'm going to forget it, and I don't want to make the other person look
fair.
bad.
No, I get that.
Yeah, there's the only one time where it was the other person.
So yeah,
and we all know who that was. He's no longer with them. Anyway, anywho, I wrote down I like the shrubbery.
Do you like the shrubbery? You can also argue, if you really want to get really deep on this, the fact that you have these very stereotypically masculine men that are very, you would look at them and assume very macho, and they've got the armor and the whole 9 yards, and a very foreboding sort of presence.
Like they look like Lord of the Rings.
Exactly. They're these very stereotypically macho men, and they're interested in shrubbery, which is stereotypically not very macho. So you can argue there's something to be said there. There's some interesting gender constructs that are being played with. Also, a good one for interesting gender constructs being played with, Life of Brian. I think that needs to be your next one, and when you watch it, you let me know and we will do an episode on it. It's not really medieval, or we'll just talk about it. Not even do an episode.
It'll be posted on the Patreon.
Life of Brian, I didn't realize kind of how progressive it was at certain points until I recently rewatched and was like, they were ahead of the game. Okay. Also, it's hilarious. But
kind of like the political quips at the beginning of the movie here.
Same thing.
Yeah. But so because you know me, obviously, and I'm surprised I've never even talked about it on the channel yet. But once we get to the point in the film where they got to cross the bridge, they got to get to the ending, and they've got the wizard warlock thing standing in their way with the questions 3 guy, right? That reminded me very, very heavily the character and their demeanor and sort of personality of, as well as the area that they're in. It reminded me of Sir Didymus with the Bog of Eternal Stench.
I've never seen Labyrinth.
No,
I know.
When I come down physically, not come down with COVID. I've already done that maybe twice, at least once. But when I come down, we'll watch it together.
I'll make curry or something.
Yeah,
it'll be fun.
Well, you know what? We'll do a night. We'll watch Labyrinth and we'll watch Life of Brian. So we'll have the 50-50. Very good. But yeah, in Labyrinth, there's obviously it's a kids show or a kids film, but there's the Bog of Eternal Stench, where Sarah in the film, her name, is trying to cross, and it's just stones on a farting.
That's Babysitter, right?
Belching.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, you're crying. Let me throw you to the goblins. Oh crap! That my actions might have consequences. Let me get them back. And Bowie's like, I've already done this. I mean, really? Just here's a glass ball. Here, go play. Go play with your toys. Let me have the baby. I'll turn the baby into a goblin. It'll have fun. It'll be all right. The Goblin City. I would totally live in the Goblin City of Labyrinth. That city looks like it would be like expensive to live in California, but you know what?
I'll take it. I have no idea what you're talking about, but in my head, if I picture Goblin City, I think he would be like mayor of the Goblin City in my imagination.
You know what? I would never overthrow Bowie because he's got it going on. However, I definitely would be some sort of
deputy
figure in the Goblin City. I feel like, sure. We'll have to talk about this in the podcast episode of The Labyrinth, what I would do in the Labyrinth. What our roles would be in the Labyrinth. But, I don't know. I'm sure I'd be some kind of tomfoolery figure, but as they all are. But anywho, she reaches a bridge and she goes and meets Sir Didymus, which is this, obviously, Labyrinth is Jim Henson's Muppet film. And Sir Didymus is the most like adorable little thing, and he's riding a dog. From the type of dog, I don't know the name because obviously people that know me, I'm not a dog person, but it's like the dog from like that Shaggy Dog film kind of thing where the dude turns into a dog.
Okay.
Right? It's just like white, shaggy carpet dog.
Like a sheepdog.
He rides a dog, which is her dog. Yeah, her dog from like the beginning of the film, of course, because callbacks. And Sir Didymus is my favorite character. He makes the film. But that just kind of reminded me of that. But what were the questions?
What's your name? What is your quest? What is your purpose? And then either what is your favorite color, or like what is the capital of Assyria? There was another one that was also hilariously difficult.
I know one was your favorite color. The other, the wings.
Oh yes, it was. What is the wind speed of an unladen swallow? Something like that. And then the response was, well, are you talking about European or African swallows? And he says, well, I don't know. And then he gets launched off.
Yeah.
Bringing it back around from the beginning of the movie.
Why haven't we, well, it's Arthur, but why haven't we need to do either for the channel or us as a group a Holy Grail reference. I don't know if we can do a festival scenario, but we can definitely maybe do a thing for the channel. But we'll do a series for the channel, but it won't be serious. We'll take cues from Norsemen and what we do in the shadows. We'll do like a comedy medieval series, but it'll be historically accurate. But
historically accurate within.
We'll have interviews. Yep. Exactly, within raisins. We'll have raisins. We'll have Raisin Brand so that we can get that Raisin Brand.
Looking at you. Was it Kellogg's?
Yeah. I'm not a raisin person, but I like the spice and raisin oatmeal. And
Raisin spice. The That is a good oatmeal. And Raisin Bran. When I was a little kid, when I was in kindergarten, I would wake up before my grandmother would. And I'd be basically like, I knew if I needed something, I could go get her. But I was fairly reasonably independent in the mornings. So I would get the box of cereal and go and watch like Reading Rainbow and all of that. And I would proceed to eat every single raisin out of the Raisin Bran. And
yes, mood.
And apparently I was very thorough about it too, because, it would take me a few days to get to every raisin, but my grandfather was like, I knew it's Raisin Bran, but there were never any raisins in there. I'm like, well,
now it's just
bran. Sorry, sucks to suck.
Yep. Yeah, now it's just oatmeal. Which I'm also not an oatmeal cookie person, but I'm a peanut butter cookie person.
My grandmother makes these oatmeal chocolate chip cookies that have a ridiculous amount of cinnamon in them, and they are amazeballs.
I make 2-ingredient peanut butter cookies. It's just peanut butter and sugar, and that's it. And it comes out better than Gordon Ramsay could, because Gordon Ramsay would put like pepper in there. Because Gordon Ramsay pretty much makes everything hot. I remember he did a segment where he was just making pancakes. Just pancakes, easiest thing in the world, and he's like, all right, and then we're going to put some peppercorn in there or something. Or some pepper, some red pepper.
I'm
like, what the hell are you doing putting pepper in pancakes?
He's British. Did they ever learn how to season anything yet? Yeah. Again, remembered how to season things? Who knows?
Yeah,
for what it's worth, though, his kids like his wife's cooking better than his cooking. So,
well, yeah, because he puts
red pepper in his pancakes.
Yeah, I remember I was watching a live stream that he did during the pandemic, where he was cooking with his daughter, his daughter was filming him, and he was cooking, his youngest daughter, and she had a hot take where she's like, "Why do you keep putting pepper in everything?" He's like, "Oh, come on, I'm trying to cook." And it's like, and she's hammering him on why everything he makes is so hot, and that's why his mother's cooking's better. Which is a mood, I love Gordon Ramsay's cooking. I just kind of
every time I see like the beef Wellington, I'm always like, I should try making that, and then I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah. That looks really hard.
Look, maybe one day. You know what? We'll do a Friendsgiving someday, and we'll try some of these.
We're gonna upgrade our Friendsgiving.
Yeah. And so at the beginning of the film, because obviously we kind of did no chronology here, but there's the French dude, right?
Yes.
Literally the beginning with the coconuts and all that. They go to this French dude, and there's this whole thing, and that kind of is what sets him off to his journey, right? Like, doesn't the French guy have the goblet?
No. At the end, they come back. They cross the bridge. At the end, they come back, and it's the same castle with the French guy, and it's supposedly there, but then the cops come.
Well, yeah, and he just like lacing out like French insults, and I'm just like, okay. At the point at the ending is kind of where they lost me.
The ending,
because because they just kind of built up this little argument and built up this character as this antagonist to Arthur. There's like true Joker Batman kind of thing, the Dark Knight Joker Batman kind of thing, not Joker, and then Arthur raises his army. And I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be hilarious. And then it just ends.
I kind of like that, though. I like that sort of like absurd, like kind of out of left field. Like, well, no, that tracks. They've been showing the police investigating this whole time. Like,
which totally forgot to mention, but yeah, I thought they would come in like during the thing, kind of like our fight for the streaming thing. But
no, they've kind of hint towards it the whole time. So I in that regard, I like that there was a payoff, and the fact that that's just how the movie ends, and it's just that's done. Like, there's no credits at the end. There's no sign that says the end. It's just boop, done.
it just is basically just like, yeah, no, we didn't have the funding to keep going. So
Well,
here it is.
I guess they had an idea.
Maybe the beer ran
Well,
out.
they had an idea for doing like a big battle with the murder bunny and like the Trojan bunny and all of that. But yeah, then the budget wasn't really there for it, and then they just kind of most of them were just like, you know what, actually this is funnier because it's just boop out of nowhere, kind of stupid.
Yeah. Well, it's on point for a kind of film
yeah.
that it is. It's obviously just a spoof movie, but then kind of tailing the end of the episode here. Uh, uh, so I have a pen and I'm ADDing it. So the film overall for me, is kind of like mid, right? It's got some really funny, hilarious niche moments, but I'm also very hard to please as it pertains to media. So it's kind of like mid, but it's something that I would go back to watch those niche moments. And I kind of was like, because we did King Arthur in 2010, and we did King Arthur in 20 whatever, and so I try to think of the people who played the certain characters in this movie, like uh, his name is escaping me because he hasn't been with us for a while, but Sean, um, Deb's son, played Sir Galahad. All love to Sean though.
His
All
wife
love
is
to
very
Sean.
nice.
Yeah, he's a gem of a person. Actually, the whole family. Honestly, they're incredible people. I love Deb. She's our fair mom, and she's dearly missed. But she very much only plays one character every year, whether she's the bad guy or the good guy.
Good at it now.
But she does it so well. I referenced her in the sense of there's people that, you know what, general cast is their niche. Some people where it works for fight cast, it doesn't work for fight cast. It works for general cast, but not for this. And she's one of those people that just no matter what, she goes out there and she controls the entire festival site, and she knows what she's doing, and she's like the main character because she's as I call it, experted it.
Yes, she's played hard mode. She's gotten she's completed all the side quests. She's a good one.
Yeah, I would say Dave is also very extra. Dave did a very good. Obviously, you weren't with us at the time, but Dave did a really good King Arthur.
I can see that.
And, he was my favorite King Arthur. Obviously, the second time we did was Boy Arthur, and that was Caleb, but that was also supposed to be Tarazir, and that wasn't. So that's kind of hard feelings there.
That kind of was.
But yeah. But we're past it. I understand it, but we're past it. No,
it's definitely
maybe 1 year.
It is. I did notice, like, I did find myself kind of comparing, some of the characters in the movie to our friends, and Black Knight is Bruce.
Did they
just swinging away anyways?
I don't think this was in the movie, but you weren't, but I was. The Seven Deadly Sins. Yeah, we kind of just shoehorned that one.
That was my idea, sir. Thank you very much. I thought it was brilliant.
Oh well, I mean, it worked really well. But I mean, it just kind of been
it was the eldest ones. Well, what's older than the Seven Deadly Sins? I don't know. I think that was a matter of some people who were cast as deadly. Some people got it. You were definitely one of the people who got it and understood like what we were going for, and like the embodiment of Melissa. Like, some people really understood. They understood the assignment. And some people didn't understand or weren't comfortable with the level of commitment to the character. But
I think, and this is not a hot take. This is just me, perhaps my directorial mind, saying some people who were cast as Seven Deadly Sins, I think everybody got the correct sin, right? Maybe except for me, because I'm not necessarily greedy, but it was very much you guys were like, hey, be
and that was the thought, was that like, you can do a Rumpelstiltskin.
Our current director, I realized what I was going to be casted when he asked me. He came up to me and he's like, "Who's your favorite character in Once Upon a Time?" And I said, "Belle," because she is. So I love Belle. Belle is, like Tara on Buffy. Belle reminds me of Tara, so I attach more to Belle. Obviously, if you're trying to cast me as a Rumpelstiltskin type, obviously I'm going to go for Belle, right? And he was kind of taken aback by that. He would think that it would be Rumpelstiltskin because I do a very good Rumple, and that's how I ended up getting my typecasting for like every year since we started watching Once Upon a Time because of Shannon and such, and so I'm like, oh, okay. He expected Rumpelstiltskin because that's what I'm going to get casted as.
Good Rumple.
And well, yeah, okay, yeah.
And I will say,
absolutely.
you understood this, and you knocked it out of the park. It was like, yep, nope, he got it.
Michael, I pretty much, Michael was my lane partner, pretty much, because obviously he was underage at the time, and you have to be with an underager to make sure they don't get snatched. And that dude would be taking things out of the trash can and eating it, or grabbing stuff off the ground and eating it. I had to be like, it's okay not to do that.
Fun, though.
don't do that. It's dedication, but you know what? You might get something you don't want from eating chew gum off the floor that you
have your immune system.
Who's been stepping on that? Go to the little mini ponies and start eating them. But don't eat them like a furry. No. That's a whole different type of eating. But oof. Anywho, yes. So words, and so that's pretty much it in terms of Monty Python, at least that my grandma memory will allow. And obviously, you and I are going to have to talk about Life of Brian for Patreon. Maybe Labyrinth for here. I don't know how it's been, how many years that I've had this channel, and never once even a reference to Labyrinth.
That's like impressive in its own.
Yeah. Yeah. Or other stuff that he's done. Well, he's had some niche medieval stuff, but it's all like really niche, right? Like he's got songs that he's playing a medieval character, but I feel like it's Bowie. He's a chameleon, so I'm just gonna let it go. Yeah. But yeah. So of course, thank you for doing this with me. I've held you for like 2 hours now, but
I had fun.
If it was in person, we'd be talking for 8 hours. Yeah, and of course we'll talk about many billions of other things in the future. I would like to talk to you about the wrestling thing, as well. It's going to come out before this episode because I try to do the podcast episodes as first of the month now. But I already talked about Vikingo or whatever. The Mexican wrestler. I think he's a Mexican wrestler. I don't know. It's AAA. You might know more about that than I do because I don't watch wrestling since they screwed Bret. I'm a Bret Hart guy.
Still hard up over the Montreal screw job, huh?
Yep. I mean, granted, I love Michaels. Bret Hart. I don't have a camera on, but when you're trying to like do the even justice scales thing, balancing the scales thing, like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, they're kind of equal. But yeah, no, I haven't watched wrestling as much as I did as a kid because that was the only exposure to anything I had since they screwed Bret back in 1997. So, yeah, but we should. I know I tried to reach out to our director, but it could be anybody. You really don't need to be any. I just want to talk about as a podcast episode professional wrestling because we, as a cast specifically, do include every now and then wrestling moves. You have, I don't know if I have, but obviously we have wrestlers on cast that do, and I've had some controversial opinions apparently regarding that, but I would love to talk more.
And a lot of the storytelling methods that we employ are the same. It's the same sort of storytelling. We have a shorter time period to do it in, and we've got some different constraints, but it's the same, within a fight within a match, that same, kind of how you build the crowd up for this, and then you kind of how you control the crowd's emotions. Yeah. We do, take a lot of inspiration from that.
Yeah. And my specifically my regarding professional wrestling and stage combat thing was more about the moves rather than the concept, right? So obviously every time I have on this channel, I kind of liken us to the WWE but without the themes music.
Which, I mean, I'm just
And,
saying, I don't see any reason why we couldn't.
But we'll leave we'll leave that conversation
That'll be a
for a
good one.
podcast episode, hopefully with you if you'd like. And beyond that, I think that's pretty much it. Any final things for you?
This has been fun. It's been super good.
Indeed. You a while back, because I do randomly text you about the things I want to do when I come back down for the channel to go viral and stuff. But you mentioned, because I keep asking every time you're on here about your podcast, and so Sage City is no longer a thing.
Yeah, Sagacity.
Sagacity. Sagacity sounds like a name or like a TV show, like Felicity Street.
Yeah,
Sagacity
I was also kind of referencing Sesame Street. No, I came up with another concept that was slightly less self-indulgent. But I've been very busy or very depressed, and I own all of the Instagram and Facebook and the website and all of that. But it is definitely the Why Are You the Worst is definitely. That's definitely going to happen. That is a super fun one, I think. And we've got a lot of good friends that are very talented people who have some
some interesting passions. And obviously if you need help with anything,
I'm going to hit you up because you got some weird hobbies, man.
A rainbow man of doing everything.
But no, right now I've got Arabian Nights. There's only 3 shows that still have tickets. It's March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So go buy a ticket. And then come see it.
Interesting. I would buy a ticket and not see it, but just still buy a ticket so it was sold.
I have a feeling it's going to wind up being sold out, which will be nice. But I can't think too hard about it because then I get really anxious. And
well, Arabian Nights, so people probably think they're going to get Robin Williams.
It's for being technically a more kid-friendly show, there's a lot of murder happening.
Yeah. Funny historical sidebar before we close out. So I did a play called it's escaping my mind, but it had to do with murder, and it had to do with, I keep wanting to say Penn Jillette, but no. The author of Sherlock Holmes, and I got to look up his name now because I think his name is in the play. Author of Sherlock Holmes, which I really don't like Sherlock Holmes, but it's because it's been marveled to death. Arthur Conan Doyle. So no, it has nothing to do with Arthur Conan Doyle, but someone, I don't know, somebody, something, right? Maybe the person who wrote the show or the play or something like that, who played the character. I don't know, something of that nature. Who cares? Anyway, moving forward. So the person who is known for Sherlock Holmes is in his rich people castle, and he invites some people over, right? It's basically setting up a Sherlock Holmes kind of play, but somebody gets shot and killed.
As one does.
I played the person who shoots and kills people. So basically my whole role is at my hand, which is gloved, and I've got a little, gimmicked gun, comes around and does the shooting thing. That's my whole character, is I'm the hand that comes around and shoots. Very Jim Henson. Very postmodern Jim Henson, right? And the very last night that we did this, and it was, I went to the director and it was okayed, but this was back before I had to change my ways and not listen to him anymore. But the very last night that I did the actual shooting scene, where it's not, oh, here's a hand with a gun. No, it's the actual climax of the shoot part. And I went, as soon as the gun goes off, I go, hee hee.
Oh, God.
Referencing as if it was Michael Jackson that killed someone.
Oh, God.
And, yeah, that, just kind of funny historical sidebar. And I haven't done a play since.
Was that like the peak moment? Like, I can't
do anything more than this. Yeah.
No. I dig it.
One was the Crazy Ladies down the street or something like that, where I played an Instacart delivery guy from the 50s. Just and the way they sold it to me, this is with Herb. Herb was in it. Herb was in all the plays that I was in. And he's like, basically you're walking into the house of Hocus Pocus. And I'm like, okay, gotcha. That's all I need. And then the other one was Solid Gold Cadillac. And I was more backstage stuff with that than on screen, but they had me do some stuff on screen. And then I can't remember the name of the person maybe who played Sherlock Holmes, who isn't Robert Downey Jr. Or Millie Bobby Brown. But in any case, whatever. I'll let it go. Who played the
Henry Cavill?
Anyway. Which it's sad that he's no longer Superman. Not that I even watched those movies, but I feel like he kind of got the boot poorly. And then losing the role of The Witcher.
Oh yeah.
He's having a rough year with his millions of dollars. But oh well. I will go ahead and let you go. This has been this episode of the Talk Past podcast regarding Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I don't know if they do any other medieval movies.
Life of Brains.
I know they have a skit.
Life of Brain is pre-medieval, but it works.